She said it like she was announcing a weather forecast. Casual voice, glint in her eye, as if the rain she predicted wouldn't soak us both. I booked a stripper who looks like my celebrity crush. She smirked, stirring the ice in her seltzer, with a copper straw that chimed against glass. The living room was tidy the way a crime scene is tidy. Everything put away, everything waiting, the air too clean to be safe. I told her, book him for your next wedding too. Because sarcasm is my life jacket when I don't know how deep the water is. I watched the smile land, tilt, and try to turn into a joke. It didn't. She didn't flinch. She set the glass down and placed both palms on the marble counter, like she was about to push herself into a handstand. Don't be dramatic, she said. It's my bachelorette. It's not a vow. Her name is Nia. There are words I can use to describe her. Clever, quick, bright. But the ones that matter are tactile. Her shoulder fits my chin. Her hands are always warm, even in February. When she laughs at a small thing, she presses her tongue to the back of her teeth. I proposed on a pier during off-season when the wind made my eyes sting, and she said yes with an expression like the first time you realize a room has two doors, the one you came in through, and the one you never noticed. That night, we ate cheap lobster rolls and planned a life that tasted like salt and bakery paper. We weren't born for spectacle, but we were fluent in it. Her sister's group chat had the energy of a live grenade with bows on it. My friends were men who confuse volume with affection. The wedding was going to be big enough to make a spreadsheet sweat. I was fine with that. Love creates a pressure gradient. It pulls people in. But love also needs rooms with doors that close, and I had begun to notice that our doors stuck in the frame. I was chopping cilantro for the tacos that would become our dinner, and then our lunch, and then our excuse to eat standing up. He looks exactly like him, she went on, too cheerful. Same hair, same smile. We showed the company a photo. You showed them a photo of your crush, I said. To match. She shrugged. It's a theme party, Evan. Relax. I'm not a jealous person. At least that's the story I tell myself. In another life I was a chill guy on a beach handing out high fives. In this life, my heart beats like a door, being knocked on too hard when something feels off. Which crush? I asked, even though I knew. We'd watched 4 seasons of a show where a man with a mouth like a promise pretended to be a detective. He had a habit of leaning on his forearms when he listened. Like listening was a sport he'd trained for. That one. It was always that one. He's not the actual actor, she said, as if that mercy could sew me up. Just a look-alike. It's supposed to be funny. You paid money to be fake, seduced by your fantasy, I said, because sometimes I take the shortest path to the ugliest wording. That's not a joke. That's ambition. She rolled her eyes, but the hurt slipped through anyway, quick as a fish. Everyone's doing it, she said. We're not in a monastery. You're acting like he's going to move in. Everyone is not me, I said, and I don't want to be everyone's husband. Silence, the kind that vibrates. Outside, the neighbor's wind chime clattered like an argument about to start. Inside, the cutting board smelled like green soap. She lifted the seltzer again, had a sip, and softened her mouth like she was trying on a different outcome. You could book a dancer too, she offered, olive branch spiked with thorns. I won't be jealous. That was the hinge. That single sentence, polished smooth with breezy generosity, told me exactly what she thought commitment was. A trade of permissions. A ledger where lines cancel out. Do what you want, I'll do what I want. We'll call it fairness, and never turn the light on long enough to inspect the receipts. I don't want to book a person to pretend to want me, I said, less angry now, more tired. I want to marry someone who knows the difference between dessert and dinner. She laughed. A needle. You're equating a show with an affair. I'm equating intention, I said. You chose a man who looks like the one you'd pick. If this was a parallel universe where I didn't exist. That's not neutral. She stared at me like I'd put a riddle on the table. It's supposed to be fun, she said again, quiet this time, as if the word fun were a coin she could keep spending until it bought her the future. Then she reached for me, palm warm against my forearm, and I felt the old current, the one that ran through our first year, the one that said, I'm here, come here, we live here. Ivan, she said, softer, it's not that deep. Maybe it wasn't, if you measured it by inches. But depth also accumulates. There had been the text she'd sent me the night. She went to a work happy hour, and stayed, until the bartender turned on the lights. The one that said, it's just drinks, stop worrying. There had been the DM from a male model liking her post about our engagement. And her heart, reacting back. And me pretending the word heart was a neutral shape. There had been the way she narrated our relationship for friends like a show with episodes. She loved me, I knew that. She also loved the way the world loved her loving me. Those are not the same sport. I slept. Or I tried. Pillows have a way of amplifying thought. Around 2 a.m., she turned over and tucked into me and said, without fully waking, if you love me, you'll let me have this. And even in her sleep she had her argument polished. I lay there and watched the dark. I thought about saying, if you love me, you won't need it. I thought about driving to the motel by the highway and renting a room and writing the word boundary on the mirror with hotel soap. I thought about our parents, the deposits, the dog we would adopt, the way she muffled her sneezes with the crook of her arm because her mother taught her it was rude to be loud. I thought about how a life is not made of a single moment you can point to and say, that was the crack. It's a fascia tear. Thin, sudden, and then everything aches when you move. In the morning the kitchen smelled like coffee and truce. She was already dressed for work in a cream sweater. That made her look like a good decision. Her hair was up in a knot that said competence, not speed. I shouldn't have sprung it on you, she said, slicing a grapefruit into exact hemispheres. I should have asked. You should have told me why you want him, I said, and watched the knife hesitate over pith. She held my eyes for a long second. Because I want to feel chosen, she said, and it was so honest it almost knocked the complaint right out of my mouth. Not just engaged to you. Wanted. By something I can't have. Safely. Controlled. It's like riding a roller coaster. It's fake danger. I can choose you harder. I said before my dignity could do the math. We can make our own roller coaster. It doesn't have to be a man with dimples who learned your XYZ routine from TV. She smiled, but the smile had seams. It's not a competition, she said, and we both knew it was. We left for work like normal people. I build software that reconciles half-truths, bank data, ledger entries, receipts that don't match. It's a living that trains you to smell lies in spreadsheets, and in the way your fiancée says fake danger with her phone face up on the counter like an invitation for God to read her notifications. I stared at code and thought about dancers and mirrors, and the way something can be fun for one person and a siren for another. Around noon I Googled the entertainment company she had hired. Their website was the digital version of a nightclub bathroom, slick, loud, men with lotion, slick abs biting lip at the camera. Premium experiences. The copy promised. Your fantasy. Choreographed. There was a booking FAQ that answered questions like, can the dancer kiss the guest of honor? And, what happens if someone cries? The answer to the first was no, and to the second was we keep performing. I closed the tab and chewed the inside of my cheek until it tasted like a penny. At 4, a florist called about our centerpieces. At 5, My best man texted a photo of a tux with the caption, "You're not allowed to be hotter than me." At 6, I stood in a grocery aisle holding 2 versions of the same hot sauce, because a label with a cartoon pepper dared me to show loyalty. At 7, I went home to a note on the counter, "Back party is Friday. Sleepover at Maya's. Love you. Don't wait up." A lipstick print marked the bottom like a stamp on a customs form. Maya's apartment is where good decisions go to watch their successors dance on the coffee table. She has a plant that has somehow learned to thrive on Prosecco. I could see it when she FaceTimed me a half hour into the night with a squeal. "We're being so good," she yelled over a background roar of women trying to swallow the weak.
Nia is a queen.
Behind her, a sash crossed Nia's chest like a banner declaring sovereignty. Someone had drawn a crown on her forehead with eyeliner. "Have fun," I said, trying to make my mouth a safe place. "We will," Nia promised, leaning into the frame, cheeks flushed, eyes lit. "I'm saving you a dance." "Save me too," I said. And because I wanted to plant a stake in the ground, I added, "And save one for yourself." Mia flipped the camera to flash me a shot of a cake, shaped like an anatomic misunderstanding. Then someone shouted,
"He's here!"
And the room shifted into that silence that isn't quiet. The intake of breath before a wave hits. The call ended without goodbye. An hour later my phone pinged with a text from a number I didn't know. "We're outside. ET, A10. Any special instructions?" J. I stared at it for too long before realizing the digit sequence was maybe a ride, share driver or a delivery, and then understanding it was neither. It was the dancer checking in with his handler. Wrong number, obviously. Except the message included our address. I experienced that odd sensation where your scalp feels too tight for your skull. I replied, "Who is this?" The response came quick. "Apologies. Wrong client. Congratulations on your upcoming wedding, J." Then another text, a minute later, "You're Evan, right? Nia's fiancé. She said you have a great sense of humor." A blank screen can be a room with no air. I typed, "Lowe's this number," and deleted it, typed, "Tell your coordinator that leaking client info is unprofessional," and deleted that too. I put the phone down. I picked it up. The 3 dots appeared. He was still typing. "Don't worry." The next message read, "It's all tasteful. I'm a professional. See you on the dance floor someday." I blocked the number so hard my thumb hurt. Then I sat very still and listened to the refrigerator hum like a therapist who isn't taking sides. At 1:16 a.m., Nia's text arrived. It was a photo, grainy, women bending like reeds. A man whose face I couldn't see spinning a chair with one hand while the other braced on the backrest. He had the lean, practiced grace of someone who knows exactly what you think you want and will take his time not giving it to you. His smile was a flash of NML. The caption said, "He really did look like him lol. You would have died. I didn't die." I scrolled. In the next picture, he had his shirt open and his tie around his wrist like restraint made portable. In the next, he was whispering something in Nia's ear while she laughed too loudly, head flung back, throat bared. In the next, his hand was on her shoulder. In the next, it wasn't. Fun. One of her friends had written under the photo, and I wanted to litigate the word until its vowels confessed. I slept worse than badly. I dreamed in jump cuts, a stage, a tie, a face that wasn't mine leaning into the freeway of my life. In the morning I brewed coffee strong enough to clean a crime. I set out 2 mugs. There are 100 ways to greet your fiancée. After her bachelorette, I chose the one where you hand her water and a lavender vitamin and say, "Tell me everything in the least cinematic way possible." Because I needed beige, not neon. She came home in a hoodie that wasn't hers. Borrowed, she said when she caught my look, and flopped on the sofa with the bondlessness of a college freshman. I gave her water and watched her drink like I was monitoring rainfall. "He was good," she said, eyes closed. They all screamed. I laughed so hard I think I sprained a rib. Mia made a playlist that would make a priest run. "How did it feel?" I asked, stirring my coffee without sugar. "To be adored," she said, and smiled into the cushion. "Like walking through mist. You don't get wet. You just glow." I nodded. "Did he touch you?" She opened one eye. "There are rules. You can follow rules and still cross lines," I said. "Specifics matter." She shifted. Her knee bumped mine. "You really want to do this?" "I want truth more than peace," I said, and she grimaced because peace is cheaper in the short term. "He didn't kiss me," she said, eyes on the ceiling. "He didn't sit on me. He did whisper something suggestive because that's the point." And I laughed because it was ridiculous. And then Maya's cousin fell off a chair, and we had to shift the whole vibe to Trige. "What did he whisper?" I asked, because I am the type to dig toward the root even when the root is under concrete. She hesitated. "He said, 'Lucky guy.'" She lied. Or edited. And my whole body heard the cut. Something in me decided to go quiet. Another thing in me decided to take notes. "And you wore someone else's hoodie home," I said mildly. And the fun didn't stay in the texts. She sat up, hair a storm. "I sent you 2 photos, she said. "You act like I streamed it. You sent me just enough to gaslight my instincts," I said, a little flame catching. "And you put your hands on his chest in one picture, and looked at him like he was the lyric you'd been trying to remember." "It was a bit," she said. "It was part of the act. It's not a crime to enjoy attention." "No," I said. "It's a crime to confuse it for affection." We stared at each other. A standoff in a living room is quieter than one in a desert, but the air feels the same, gritty, thin, too open. Finally she sighed and went boneless again. "Okay," she said. "Let's draw the lines. Tell me where they are. I'm serious. It matters to me that you feel safe." I believed her. That was part of the trouble. I always believed her when she spoke like that. And then 2 weeks later a new event would arrive with a rule rewritten by the crowd. So, we drew them. No private contact with the dancer after the party. No jokes that only make sense if you were him. No late night DM replies to fans, who happen to be men with headshots. No harmless drinks alone with that coworker who thinks flirting is networking. No swapping garments with strangers at 2 a.m. because the night air is chilly and you forget your coat. She agreed. She asked me to draw lines for myself too. Because fairness likes symmetry. I wrote, no comparing her to an ideal in my head, and then punishing her for not being a ghost. No turning play into politics. No weaponizing the word respect. No pretending I'm above wanting to be wanted. We went on like that. The list lived in a drawer like medicine. We took it out when we felt the fever rise. For a while it worked. We returned to easy rhythms, bills, playlists, my mother's questions about centerpieces, her father's weird habit of calling me champ. My best friend, Darius, came over to measure my living room for a projector screen. He promised to loan me for the playoffs. The refrigerator made that little rattle that means ice. Nia hummed when she cleaned, a low 3-note thing she said. She learned from her grandmother. I rediscovered the precise joy of her bare feet on my shins at midnight. We were fine. Not radiant, but fine. Then the envelope arrived. Cream paper, no return address, my name hand, lettered like a love letter or a bill. Inside a single 4x6 photo and a receipt. The photo was of Nia at the party, sitting on a chair, head thrown back. The dancer's fingers braced on the chair back near her ear. Their faces close enough for breath to be a conversation. The receipt was from the entertainment company, itemized with corporate clarity: base fee, travel surcharge, custom costume ad, on, celebrity lookalike premium, Private after. 400, paid in cash. My throat made the sound a window makes when a BB pellet hits it, a small, almost polite crack. I read the line again, private after. I didn't want to be that man. The one who interprets a line item as betrayal without context. I wanted to be the man who asks, listens, draws breath, interprets the facts like numbers. I took a photo of the receipt, slid the paper back into the envelope, smoothed it with my palm, and put it on the counter. I texted Naya, "Can you come home for lunch?" She called. "Are you okay?" she asked, worried in that sincere way I have always loved. "What's wrong?" "Just want to see you," I said. "Bring your appetite." She walked in 20 minutes later, carrying 2B in each me and a smile like a peace flag. I placed the envelope between us like a third sandwich. "What's this?" she asked, brow knitting, lips soft. She opened it, saw the photo, went still, saw the receipt, went paler than cream. She didn't deny. She didn't grab for a story. She placed both palms on the counter, like she had the night she announced the booking, and for a second, I could see the math happening behind her eyes, the choice between confession, deflection, and delay. "It wasn't what it looks like," she said, and I almost laughed because the line had teeth. "What does private after mean?" I asked. My voice was steady in the way of a table right before someone flips it. Conversation, she said. Backstage. 10 minutes. He upsells it. They all do. I needed to know. She stopped. "You needed to know what?" I said carefully, like I was coaxing a rabbit out from under a porch. "If I could stand it," she said. "If I could sit there with him in costume, in character, and not want anything real from him. Not betray you even in my head. I thought if I passed that test, then everything else would be a joke. It would be proof I was safe. A test. Administered by the man she'd chosen to resemble the one she wanted to want. I felt a dark hilarity rise in me, like realizing the fire escape leads back into the burning room. "You paid for temptation to certify your loyalty," I said, and she winced. "I wanted to break the spell," she whispered. "I thought making it obvious would kill it." "And did it?" I asked. "Did it die?" She closed her eyes. Her shoulders lifted and fell as if she'd gone underwater and returned. "It got smaller," she said. "It got small enough that I could carry it without it leaking." "You carried it into our house," I said, not shouting, just describing. "You carried it into our bed when you woke up smiling and said it was silly fun." "I didn't do anything with him," she said. "I didn't touch anything that matters. I wanted to pass the test and I did." "You failed mine," I said, and the sentence tasted like metal even though it was just air. She cried. "Not the pretty kind. The kind where your whole face forgets how to lie." I wanted to gather her. I wanted to step back. I compromised by standing completely still and letting the air between us convulse. "I didn't tell you because I was ashamed that I needed the test," she said. "I told myself it wasn't a secret, it was a process. But I know secrets by their weight. I know when I've made a pocket out of my own mouth." "Who sent this?" I asked, tapping the envelope. She shook her head, mascara threatening to ladder. "I don't know. The company. A friend thinking it's funny." "Him. He asked for your number that night. I didn't give it." "I swear." She grabbed my wrist, put my hand over her heart like a priest making sure the miracle is happening. "Ivan. Please. The problem with love is that it makes a good lawyer. It's persuasive. It knows your weak points because it built them with you." I believed she hadn't touched him. I believed she had paid for a room to sit in with a man who wore a face she'd once picked in a quiz, and that the room had made her feel both ridiculous and somehow convinced. I believed she loved me. I also believed something had shifted in the architecture. A beam had been sawed in a neat line, and the structure still stood, but now it knew it was mortal. I told her, I need time. She nodded, breath hitching, relief and dread sharing a glass. I'll sleep at Darius's for a bit, I said. We won't cancel anything. We'll press pause. If you need a test, take it. If you need a confession, make it. But stop mailing me assignments I didn't sign up for. I picked up my keys. I put them down. I picked them up again, because leaving shouldn't be practiced but often is. She followed me to the door. I'll call the company, she said. I'll find out who sent it. I'll get it all in writing. That's Naya Crisis's spreadsheet. Don't, I said. At least not for me. Do what you need for you. She touched my cheek like you touch a photograph at a museum when the guard isn't looking. Come back, she whispered. Soon. Darius's couch is a sunken ship that somehow still floats. He put a blanket in my hands and didn't ask anything for an hour, because that's what good men do. Then he said, "So?" And I told him everything while the game flickered on mute, and the ice in our glasses clicked like teeth. He didn't tell me to leave her. He didn't tell me to forgive. He said, "If you're going to stay, don't be noble. Be honest. Nobility kills marriages." He also said, "If a man texts you with a winky face after telling you he looks like your fiancé's crush, you're allowed to throw your phone into the sun." I slept there 2 nights. On the third, I woke up with the solution not like a light bulb, but like a lint roller picking up all the stray threads and making a shape. I showered, shaved, and went to the entertainment company's office. It was in a warehouse neighborhood pretending to be a district. The receptionist had eyebrows sharp enough to open mail. "Can I help you?" She asked in a voice that warned me she enjoys refusing. "I'm here to see Jay," I said, because of course the dancer's name was the letter he'd signed with. She looked up. Assessed. "Do you have an appointment?" I smiled the way you smile at airport security when your belt sets off the buzzer. "No," I said. "But he sent my home address a message the other night, and I thought he might like it back." I slid my phone across with the text he shouldn't have sent. Her mouth twitched. "One moment," she said, and disappeared through a door stenciled PRIVE in a font that was trying too hard. He came out in a sweatshirt and joggers like a man who could run forever, if you asked him nicely. Up close he looked less like the actor and more like a person. That helped. "Ivan," he said, and offered his hand. I left it hanging. "You sent me an invoice for my fiancé's private after," I said. "It landed at my place." "That's either negligence or malice. Pick one." He spread his hands and somehow put his palms up without surrendering anything. "Mistake," he said. "Our admin is new. A label got crossed. I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry to me," I said. "Be sorry to her. And send me a letter stating what did and did not happen in that room." A smile played at the corner of his mouth. "You want a certificate of chastity." "I want the truth, in writing," I said. "Because, if another envelope lands on my counter right before my wedding, I'll know where to send the pictures of your mistake to next. Your agent, your mother." He laughed, shook his head, not offended, impressed. "You're not the first fiancé to ask," he said. "You are the first to threaten my mother." He took his phone out, tapped. "Email." I gave it. The letter arrived 5 minutes later on letterhead that looked like a nightclub's diploma. It was specific and boring. No kisses, no touching, no behind the scenes contact beyond the 10-minute conversation. I stood there and read every line while he waited with the patience of a man who has been measured by worse. "Why did you text me?" I asked without looking up. "The winky face." He shrugged. "Some men like to pretend they're part of it," he said. "It makes them feel in control." "Do I look like a man who needs pretend control?" I asked, finally meeting his eyes. "No," he said. You look like a man who needs the truth to line up with his spine. Then keep it lined, I said, folded the letter, and left. Back in the parking lot, the sun took an interest in me. My phone buzzed. Nia, can you talk? I called her. She answered on the first ring. Come home, she said. Please. I did. The house smelled like bleach and lemons. She had cleaned like penance, even the tops of the door frames. On the counter, her own envelope. Inside the same photo, the same receipt, and a note on sticky paper in handwriting I didn't recognize. 3 words. You deserve better. Ooh, I asked. She shook her head. No idea, she said. Could be a friend. Could be his admin. Could be karma. I called the company. They stonewalled me. Did you? I went, I said, and handed her the letter. She read it, air leaving her lungs like she'd unzipped it. You're a little terrifying, she said, and kissed my cheek like a blessing she hadn't earned yet. We need rules, I said. Not to police you, but to protect us. She nodded, cried again, nodded more, steadied. I'll cancel the costume party theme for the rehearsal, she said. We can be boring. We can be stable. I want that. God, I want that. We tried. We really did. For a while, it was better than fine. We were tender as if we'd found each other in a wreck. We got fitted for rings, and she squeezed my hand when the jeweler asked if we wanted etching inside, and I whispered the first thing she ever said to me that made me laugh. You look lost. Want a map? We had dinners with parents who alternated between weeping and saying things like, do you know I once saw Elton John in a grocery store? We wrote vows that sounded like people, not television. Then, 3 weeks before the wedding, my phone lit up with a notification from a friend who never texts unless something is on fire. A link. A forum thread. The title, Heard a rumor Nia from Nia and Evan, hooked up with her dancer. Receipts incoming. My mouth filled with electricity. I clicked. The first post was a screenshot of the same photo I'd received. The second was a blurred image of 2 figures in a hallway that could have been any hallway, if not for the crown decal on the wall. Maya had posted in her stories that night. The figures were silhouettes. One leaned toward the other. The caption Lo o caballos. The comments below foamed the way a river does after a dam breaks. Then, at the bottom, a username I recognized because I had just seen it on letterhead J. Writing, nothing happened. Stop spreading lies. The thread mocked him. Someone wrote, the dancer doth protest too much. Someone else wrote, he knows he's getting sued. In the kitchen, Nia stood with her phone in both hands, face ashen. Don't read the comments, I said. Stupidly, because that's like telling a person not to bleed. She put her phone down like it had burned her. I didn't touch him, she said, voice steady, and for the first time since the envelope, I heard not guilt, not fear, but anger. Not at me. At the machine. She went online. Not to confess, not to be humble, not to feed the beast its favorite meal. She went online to tell the truth in a voice without gloss. I booked an actor to play a role at my Bachelorette, she said to the camera. I thought it would be funny. It wasn't. It was confusing. It made my fiancée feel unsafe. I'm sorry to the only person whose opinion matters. We're okay. The rest of you are not invited to this conversation. Then she closed the app and put the phone face down, and we sat on the floor with our backs against the couch like people hiding from a storm that just discovered our address. The thread didn't end, because threads don't end. They just run out of room and open another. But something in it lost momentum after her refusal to play. The dancer's agent threatened lawsuits in language that sounded like a fax machine. Mia called to cry because she felt complicit. Darius offered to stand outside our door with a bat, even though we live on the 4th floor, and bats don't help with rumors. Nia and I slept with our feet tangled like ropes. We began to plan a smaller wedding, then reconsidered. Then accepted that size wasn't the variable that mattered. On the morning of the wedding, I woke before the alarm and lay there watching the light unspool. She turned toward me, already awake, eyes clear in a way I hadn't seen since the pier. "I don't want a test today," she said. "I want a promise." "My too," I said, and the simplicity was such a relief it made my chest ache. We married under a tree in a garden we rented from a city that rents out its prettiest places. Her father whispered, "Champ," into my ear before he sat down. My mother forgot her tissues and used her sleeve like an elegy. There was a moment, just as the officiant said the verb, that makes you someone new, when a fat cloud slid over the sun, and the light went from bright to right. And I thought, this is the opposite of a stage. This is the room with the good door. If stories were obedient, that would be where I stop. The kiss. The confetti we chose because it was biodegradable and also because it was ours. The dance where she forgot the steps and laughed into my shirt. But obedience is the wrong expectation. Stories, like people, wobble. At the reception, 3 tables over, a man I didn't recognize lifted his phone and signaled to someone I did the dancer, in a suit that tried to be invisible. My skin prickled. He had not been invited. I looked at Nia. She was talking to her grandmother, head tipped. A softness playing on her face that made me want to carry her. I crossed the room. I reached the dancer before he reached the dance floor. "You shouldn't be here," I said, keeping my voice low, like you do with wild animals and people who mistake attention for permission. He spread his hands. "A friend of a friend," he said, "came to apologize in person. To congratulate. No funny business." "This is not your stage," I said. "Leave now." He nodded, surprisingly quick, like a man grateful to be told what to do. "I will," he said. "But first." He reached into his jacket, and for a fraction of a second every part of me braced for the worst. A letter, I thought. A threat, a flash. He pulled out a gift bag. Inside a cheap, stupid crown. "For the after," he said. "For you. Because kings don't need tests." I should have thrown it at him. I should have set it on fire with my eyes. I did neither. I took it, because sometimes accepting an absurdity dispossesses it of power. "Goo," I said. He went. Back at our table Nia had seen it all. She lifted the crown, snorted, placed it on my head, crooked, kissed me. A photograph was taken just then. It sits on our mantel in a frame made of dark wood. We look foolish with joy. You can't see the bruise under the picture. That's how pictures work. But I can. I can feel it under the glass like a healed bone that still predicts rain. We went on a small trip. We came home. We returned to laundry and lists and the way people who love each other build grace in layers. We didn't become saints. We became careful. Occasionally, when the world goes glossy and the urge to test flutters its coupons, Nia says, "I don't need it." And I believe her, because the ache in her voice sounds like a person who has learned the hard shape of a boundary and how to sit with it. Sometimes, late at night, she asks for proof, not the kind that hides in a drawer, but the kind that lives in a sentence. "Tell me again," she says into my chest, "that you trust me." I say it, not as rope but as seed. I water it with ordinary days. I cut cilantro, and we sit at the counter, and she stirs ice with a copper straw, and we talk about everything that sits below jokes, the deep, slow layer where the truth we're building lives, a little messy and a lot ours. And once in a while she looks at me with that expression from the pier, the one like the second door. And my sarcasm doesn't need to be a life jacket anymore, because I can feel ground under my feet. A month after the wedding, a final envelope arrived. No return address, of course. Inside, a photograph of a hallway with 2 shadows leaning toward each other. On the back, written in a hand I didn't know, was a single sentence. "You chose each other." I showed it to Nia. She flipped it over, smiled that small real smile and slid it into a drawer, not because we wanted to hide it but because we had a better picture to put on the mantel. That night she fell asleep with her feet cold against my calves and murmured, "Lucky guy." And it wasn't a test. It was a truth. It was a map back to the pier and the tacos, and the way you can smirk when you're safe and mean nothing but mischief. And in the morning I woke before her and watched the light unspool and thought, not for the first time and not for the last, that sometimes you learn the shape of forever by refusing to hire a stranger to pretend to hand it to you. That sometimes you learn it by